What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of Natty News Daily. Just quickly want to shout out, we hit 10K as of this morning. Boys and I woke up to 10,000 followers on Instagram, so that was pretty damn cool. Obviously, that's been a goal of ours since recently, seeing traction on the page kind of pick up. We definitely started chasing down that 10K, and we originally had the goal by the end of December, which didn't happen, but here we are approaching the end of January, so not too far after that. But anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here with WNBF UAE. We've got Kyle Gallant and Charles Barclay, the two gentlemen that run the whole thing over there. So welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. So these two gentlemen reached out to us, which is kind of cool because it's always nice, to get people that want to get involved versus us kind of chasing down conversations with other people. So it's nice to see that, the natural community is kind of coming together and willing to speak on one platform, which is obviously one of the goals that we're trying to do here at Natty News Daily. So quickly, guys, give a background of your history within natural bodybuilding, and then we'll kind of dive into your involvement with WNBF.
Kyle, you want to start?
Yeah. So, for me, it was a way to kind of just have a new set of goals. So I was an athlete growing up in high school, and then I went to the US for college and I played a couple sports there. And then when I was done playing, basketball and golf, I needed something else in the gym to kind of get me going, give me a bit of motivation.
Yep.
And so when I moved out here to Dubai to work, that's when I first got into bodybuilding per se. And I competed I competed a little bit before that as well, but nothing really big. It was in Canada, small events. And then coming out here, I went to a WNBF Germany show.
Yep.
And then the year after, I went to the same show, and that's where I met Charles. And yeah, so the reason we got it started here in Dubai with the event that we have going now is because me and Charles both, had to go to Germany in order to compete naturally, because here in Dubai, there's not really much opportunity. We can go compete and say there's a few shows out here that are quite big, but
yep.
if you're a natural athlete, you're not going to come anywhere near the top 5 in those shows.
Yeah.
So we thought, why don't we bring something here? And we got in touch with Bob, who's the president of the WNBF. Charles actually got in touch with him because Charles competed in the Worlds in men's physique. What was it, 2019, I think.
Oh, cool.
And from there, we started organizing it, started getting it together. There's a lot of politics, a lot of bureaucracy to get it together here in Dubai, obviously, as it's we're both expats here, so we're not actually what you call citizens of the country. So there's a lot of red tape we had to go through, but once we did, once we got the sports council here on board, the bodybuilding council here on board, then we had the event in full swing. And last year was our first event. It was really successful, actually. We had Bob come out, so the president of the WNBF, to help us run it, which was extremely useful just in terms of, all the behind the scenes stuff when you're running a bodybuilding show, running it smoothly, especially the polygraph testing and stuff like that. So we ran the show last year with COVID. There was a bit of issues in terms of if you had to be vaccinated or if you didn't have to be vaccinated. But at the end of the day, we got it running. We had about 65 athletes. So it was a bit of a smaller show because it was the first event here. We didn't have much promotion in the lead up to it because we didn't have all the approvals just yet. So we didn't want to set off any red flags before we got those approvals.
For sure.
But a very, very successful show. We had a high quality of athletes. This year, we're looking to get anywhere from 130 to 150. So it'll be a much bigger show.
Yep.
And also the reason we brought it here was because bodybuilding is huge in Dubai. There are so many expats that are very passionate about fitness, very passionate about bodybuilding. But like I said before, there's no avenue for them to go unless they want to go the IFBB route.
Yep.
So we thought that, if we can provide the platform for these guys and girls, then, everyone would have something to work towards where they don't have to, spend a ton of money to go to Europe or to go to North America just to compete.
Yeah, you've got, untapped potential, right? You're kind of the first that are offering it over there. And, we briefly spoke before we come on live, but, you were saying that, IFBB wise, like no problem, plenty of shows, opportunities, plenty of athletes. But, if you're a natural athlete over there, then, you're kind of limited to what your options are, at least from a competitive standpoint. And like you said, when it comes to traveling, or there's expenses, competing's expensive, right? So not only you've got the travel expenses, you've got the time expenses, like all those things that come into play, which can deter a lot of people. And if your only option is to do an untested event, your aspirations of winning are probably out the window. So you're probably going to see great success over there, which obviously if you're expecting double the athletes this time around, like that's a really good sign, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, we got pretty good feedback about the comparison to some of the other shows as well. And that I think what's cool about natural bodybuilding, but particularly the WNBF, like we really give people like a lot of stage time.
Nice.
So people who've been kind of practicing, they're like posing for maybe 5 minutes, kind of got a nice surprise when they are up there for like 20, 25. But that was really cool as well, like to actually let athletes have a platform to kind of show off what they've been working on was that was super positive as well.
You've got some good athletes over there too. Like looking on Instagram, there's some talent, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about the event here in Dubai is, it's nationalities from all around the world, because it's basically an expat city. I mean, I think Dubai is 85% expats, meaning people who aren't actually from here. So we have athletes. I mean, the guy who won last year was from India. He was going up in the overall with a guy somewhere from in Africa, and then another guy was from Egypt. But you have athletes literally from almost every nationality that are competing on our stage. So, and
Cool.
Also because Dubai is the hub of the Middle East in terms of, it's like the central airport for this whole region. This year we're expecting a lot of guys from Saudi Arabia, from Oman, Qatar, a lot from Egypt, Armenia. So it'll be a big event in terms of international athletes as well, which is what we're really excited for this year, because like I said, here in the Middle East, natural bodybuilding hasn't really evolved just yet. So hopefully with this platform that we're providing, as well as some of the other WNBF events that are starting up in this region, we can, year by year grow it, right?
Yeah, and over there, just from what I've seen anyways on social media, is it's a very I guess fitness influenced lifestyle, right? Like your gyms, the weather looks great. A lot of the food looks really good. Like it just looks like if you want to be a good bodybuilder, whether you're natural or not, it looks like over there is kind of a place that you could really cultivate that lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that's why we get a lot of the big names in the industry come over, really. I think that, and it's also tax free, so there's probably that has a lot to do with it.
Never a bad thing.
Yeah. But with in terms of our athletes, the really positive thing I think for us is our juniors and teens. We have like a really strong group of those guys coming through, which is really cool. That's why the other big push I think for us this year will be to kind of, the UK did it really well at Worlds this year, where they bought a squad, I think it was like 26 people or something. We want to try and do something similar with our group and really get a proper showing down at Worlds as well. So there's a few things in the pipeline.
That's awesome.
Well, I mean, that's the future of the sport, right? So if you can get them early and kind of shape and guide them, keep them going the natural route, that's where we need to go for sure. And you guys have that chance to really like create the legacy of natural bodybuilding where you're at.
And I get the sense that there's kind of a strong community of sorts there as well. Could you touch on that a little bit? I mean, from the teen perspective, I'm guessing a lot of these teens are them and their friends that train together and let's compete together.
Go on.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I mean, like Charles was saying, we had small groups of teens last year, but I think all these guys kind of knew each other because they go to school together, as well as the juniors, right? But the cool thing about our teen category, and we keep talking about this, we started a podcast when we talked about it. We had guys that were inviting pretty much their whole school to the event.
Yeah.
So when the teens were up there, the judges could barely hear each other talking, because you've got one guy that's got 70 people in the stands cheering for him. And then you got another guy that's got 100 people in the stands cheering for him.
Awesome.
So it's a really great atmosphere, because even if you have, say, 4 or 5 really good athletes, when people see that, especially the young people that come to cheer them on, they say, I want to do that. That looks like a really cool thing. And so having that type of atmosphere at our event for the young guys is great, because ultimately, I mean, the 16, 17, 18-year-old guys, if we're looking to build this sport forward, those are the guys that we need to really promote, and we need to really, you know, boost up, because they're going to be the ones that 3, 4, 5 years down the road are carrying our sport. And so it was great for us to see last year, especially in our first event, that was, you know, our most, let's say, rambunctious crowd, because they were just, you couldn't hear anything going on in the stadium. It was nuts.
That's
And
fantastic.
that makes it so much better, right? Like we've talked about on other podcasts, where it's like, you know, you go to a show and it's you know, a gym locker or like a gymnasium, and the lighting's kind of shitty and all that kind of stuff. You got 10 people in the crowd. So when you compare that to, like, you know, an IFBB event, you're like, oh well, natural bodybuilding's just like meh. Whereas you guys, like, looking at the photos, like the lighting was great. Obviously, if there's a big crowd there, like you're gonna get excited about it as a spectator, as an athlete sitting in the audience, and you're like, you know, kind of toying with the idea of it. If you see that and you're like, man, like these guys are amazing physiques. They've got people cheering for them. They, you know, the photos are awesome. The whole atmosphere is great. Like that pulls you in, you know, just as much as the idea of competing does, right? Is the atmosphere that you can create.
Yeah,
we got really lucky with that. I think with, in a way, COVID like played into our hands a little bit with our location, because we had it in the theater in the Mall of the Emirates, which is like the second largest mall in the country. Like, which sounds bizarre to have like a bodybuilding show in a mall that's like attached to it.
Yeah.
But it's like a fancy theater where they put on like shows, you know. So yeah, they had all the lighting rigged up. It looked cool. It had a really good backstage area and heaps of seating for the spectators. So that was really, I think, another big draw, was that we could create this like crazy atmosphere. For me, it was like even wilder than Worlds, from what I remember. Like just the people like screaming and stuff like that. It felt like a soccer game or something. It was awesome.
And that's one thing that me and Charles had talked about when we were about to run the event was, you know, there's a lot of events, like you said, that maybe are held in some high school gym or something like that. But here in Dubai, especially, we want to attract all the international athletes that are coming from countries outside, because we might be the closest opportunity for them to compete. So the one thing we didn't want to do was, you know, cheap on the venue or anything like that. So we found, like Charles said, the theater in the Mall of the Emirates, which was a big amphitheater. And our goal really is to make it an event. I mean, I guess everyone wants to do that, but our goal is to make it something that the athletes can come and say, wow, this is an amazing experience. Because at the end of the day, like if you're putting the event in a small gym, it's going to you can have a good event, you can have great athletes, but it's going to ruin the atmosphere. It's going to ruin the environment for athletes, and they're not going to enjoy it as much. So if they're traveling, you know, if they're buying a plane ticket and we have, you know, 50 to 100 athletes coming from outside of the country to compete with us, then we don't want to cheap out in terms of the venue or in terms of the trophies and all that stuff. So this year, our big goal is to make it more of an event, right? Make it more memorable.
Feel more legitimate, not Bush League, you know, that I agree with that.
Do you think that stems from your competitive history too, and kind of picking up things along the way of what you liked, what you didn't like? Again, this is something that we've talked about on other podcasts, and just between the three of us is like, you know, every show you do, you're like, oh, that was really cool. I hope all shows do that. And then you also go to shows and you're like, like, I didn't love that. You know, the backstage was small, it was cramped, the lighting was shit. I couldn't tell if I was full or flat. Like, do you have, you know, things that you've picked up over the years where you're like kind of making a mental note?
I think
that's a really good point. Like for me, a lot of the inspiration came off inspiration, I guess, came from the WNBF Germany. They run a really good show. So shout outs to them. Like compared to the shows I'd done before, which were in an untested federation, the worst thing about them was they weren't very well organized. So, you know, they post you're supposed to be on stage at this time, and it's like 3 hours later and you're not on stage, and you've shot your shot, you know. So a big thing that the guys in Germany did really well was run like a tight ship, and it made the experience as a competitor, as an athlete, really good.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
you really enjoy the show. Like there's no stress. It's a fun day.
Yeah, people don't realize that extends to spectators too, right? Like if you have your, take one of those teams like you mentioned earlier, if they've got 70 people there, and like, let's be honest, like all 70 of them are not there for the whole show. They're probably there for them and them only. And it's like, okay, Mark, when are you on stage? Mark's like, I'm gonna be on stage at 10. Those 70 people are fully invested for Mark being on stage at 10 o'clock. They're excited, they're ready to go, and they're feeling it. 10:30 rolls around. Those 70 people are starting to die down. Mark's getting frustrated. 11 o'clock rolls around. Those 70 people are starting to get pissed. Mark's getting pissed. Like that can kill. People don't realize that timeline, if the lighting is perfect, the atmosphere is great, but your timeline's off, like anybody watching this that wants to promote a show, timeline can kill it. And even a half hour can really start to sour the whole thing. Because that extends the rest of the show, right? Like it's not just one class.
Yeah, and that'll be the big challenge for us this year, is obviously going from 65 athletes to the point that, we've already got an expected number of 120, and we don't even know the athletes from international countries that are going to be coming. How are we going to manage the timeline? Because obviously if you're running a show of 65 people versus 120 to 150 people, it's going to be a little bit tighter in terms of how we can schedule things. And last year, luckily we got a good, let's say, dry run in with a smaller show. So hopefully this year we can continue with keeping things on time, but it will be a challenge. And I think that's something that me and Charles are looking forward to, is just a matter of, putting things together in the right way, especially with the WNBF, because we'll have polygraphs as well. Yep. So testing will be, instead of 3 days, it might be a week and a half long.
Wow.
And I'm not sure if you guys saw much about our show last year, but the polygraph is definitely a eventful week here in the UAE. We almost broke the record in the WNBF, I think, last year for failed tests.
Nice.
So we had,
that's the record you want right there.
It was a bit scary to start off because we had in our first 6 athletes, we had 3 people fail. So that was a bit terrifying. And Bob was on a plane coming from the US to us, and we're just sending him text messages like, "Oh, this is a nightmare. We're freaking out." Luckily, it kind of evened out from there, and we didn't have as many more failed tests. But ultimately, that'll be the challenge for us this year, is 1, the timing of the show, but also 2, like the polygraph test. If you have 65 athletes versus 120, 150 athletes, not a lot of guys really understand how the polygraph works. So we need to really inform.
Terrifying. It's one of the most scariest things I've ever done.
Yeah, even if you've never taken anything.
Oh yeah, I didn't ever done anything wrong, but it terrified me.
Like me and Charles always say,
I compare it to like, it's like getting pulled over. Yeah, if you get pulled over by a cop and you're like, I've not done anything, but what? Like something's going wrong.
You start thinking about every single supplement you've ever taken, like, oh God, if any of those were tainted, or it's like.
Yeah, I mean, luckily we lucked out with that as well, in that we flew over Scott from California as well. He did the Germany show as well, and we just thought, you know what, like, he's super experienced, he knows how to talk to people who fail out as well, so it was well worth getting him in. Super organized guy as well, so we did really well with that on that side of things. So we'll try and do that again, get like experienced testers in, and just keep that rolling.
Is PED use over there like relatively like wishy-washy?
It's huge. Like, probably when all of us started training, it's like whey protein, creatine, and BCAAs. Here it's like whey protein, testosterone, clenbuterol. Like, it's there's no shade on anyone, but it's just much easier to get hold of.
Oh, for sure. And I assume probably like the legality of it over there is a little bit looser than other areas too, right?
I think so.
With the number of people failing, do you think it was people trying to skirt through, or just maybe lack of education on what was allowed and what wasn't?
I think
it was
lack of education on what was allowed and what wasn't, which is, we try to promote it as much as we can in the stories and in the posts. Yeah. But inevitably, not everyone's going to follow everything, as intensively as you would like, in terms of going to the website and the WNBF, reading through the whole list. And then as well, like what we can kind of run into is, guys who it's not their first time competing and they've lived in Dubai for a while, for example, and the last time they competed, a coach, maybe convinced them to take X, Y, or Z, and that falls within the 10-year rule. So then when they take the 10-year polygraph, they struggle, right? Because back maybe 3-4 years ago, they took certain substances that are not allowed within a natural organization. And if you're just doing, some federations, for example, just do like a urinalysis test, well, you'll be fine if you just do an urinalysis test. But if you're doing a 10-year back polygraph, it's going to catch a lot of people. And I'm sure that was a surprise, right, for a lot of athletes.
I would imagine too, places that have looser restrictions on supplements, for example, like Canada, like we're tight. Like we have a lot, even supplements in the States compared to what we have here. There's certain things that we can't put in our pre-workouts or whatever. So I imagine, even places like Dubai and stuff with just supplements, it could be, make sure you read that label extensively, because there might be something in there that, whether it's an ingredient, an amount of an ingredient that, by all intents and purposes, you wouldn't think would be an issue, but under WADA, it could be.
What we ran into mostly was, the most popular thing here, and people just take it kind of like I said, like a health supplement, is clenbuterol, because we live in Dubai, there's nice beaches, everyone's on Instagram, everyone's trying to get social media famous. And what we run into a lot is clenbuterol, because a lot of guys might have taken a cut, 2 years ago, or they took it for a show the last time they competed. And I think it was, we had 7 athletes fail our polygraph. I think 5 of them was clenbuterol. So that was something that we noted we needed to make sure that in social media this year,
Clen.
Aware for all the athletes, you can't be taking this. And if you have, please understand the guidelines for how long in the past it must be in order for you to compete in our event.
I think that's what people missed on it. Was I think some of them also didn't really read the list, because there was someone who I remembered came in and failed out, and is more you could see the shock on his face when we said that, and clenbuterol, and he's like, right, and you're like, oh no, it's just that's what got me. But as long as we're pushing it, read the list, list, email everyone, here's the list. We'd never stop talking about the damn WADA list. So they, hopefully that covers us. But it's just one of those things.
Have you guys heard about turkesterone right now? So
I've heard of it, but
So I don't know a whole lot about it. I just heard the name floating around and stuff, and it's something that you can get here in Canada, you can get in the States and all that kind of stuff. And it's not currently banned, but it's kind of on the fence of it could be. And there's people locally to me that I know took it, and they asked me if I knew anything about it, and I said I don't know. I can't give you any honest feedback on it. Do your research. So I had posted something, this is a while ago now, and the OCB got back to me and said that based on their research and the potential muscle building properties of it, that it may not be banned now, but within the next year or two, WADA, it could end up on the banned substance list. So I'm like, man, everybody that took this turkesterone now, if they compete WNBF over the next couple of years, which I know 2 of them for sure intend to, you're screwed, right? Because you've taken this 3-month fucking whatever of turkesterone, saw minimal progress, if any, but if it ends up on the banned substance list, you're that guy that they're sorry, man, you did that stupid.
I'd imagine it'll be the same situation as all the guys who took SARMs or SERMs,
Oh, for sure.
When they first came out, because it wasn't banned when it first came out because it was so new. But now if you look at any WNBF list, that's highlighted, no SARMs, no SERMs for X amount of years, right? So athletes need to be careful, right? Even though it's not banned now, if you if you really want to stay on the natural route and you want to compete in these tested federations, then you need to be careful with what you're taking. Even if it's not banned, just make sure you know exactly what it is and the properties of that substance.
I think that just continues to speak to the purity of natural bodybuilding. It's that the guy that wants to take turkesterone just to get that little bit of an edge comes around and bites him in the butt. I'm like, man, should have just ate more chicken and lifted more.
Yeah, typically there's no escape from the hard work, right? Just keep training and eating. You're going to be as big as the next guy. It's just fine. Just focus on the big rocks.
No, for sure. So let's kind of close this out with long-term goals. What is your vision for what you guys are doing? Obviously, you've got a big event coming again this fall, like we've talked about through this episode, with potentially double the athletes. Like where is this going in your head?
Well, we've talked about this
Yeah.
a little
Go on,
bit.
Kyle. You do yours, and then I've got some bigger plans also. But I'll let Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, the short-term goal obviously is this year we want to have hopefully anywhere from 130 150, which we're pretty sure we will get just by the interest we've received through Instagram. I mean, our Instagram, every single day I'm getting 5 to 10 DMs asking us information about the event, which is a little bit crazy considering just a year ago we weren't even sure if it was going to run just because of like I said, the politics here. But the short-term goal, like I said, is to have that for this year's event. Next year, I mean, we would like to have 2 events. So one would be in the spring, one would be in the fall. And we've kind of discussed if it's plausible to have a pro-am here in Dubai, which would be like the spring event.
Yep.
And then we'd have a big world championship qualifier in the fall. The reason we want a pro-am is because now that, the sport is developing in some of these Middle Eastern countries, there's going to be a lot of pros that want somewhere to compete. And honestly, I don't think there's a better place for all these pros to come than Dubai, because it's very accessible for anybody. It's, we have the DXB airport, which is one of the major airports in the world. So we want to run the pro-am. We just need to see how plausible that will be in a year's time. If it's not in a year's time, hopefully we can do it, in 2 years' time. But that's the main goal, at least that I have for our event, is to be able to bring some pro athletes here and showcase what natural bodybuilding is all about. Because when people see, pro athletes, especially when they see them competing for cash prizes, which, not a lot of us are in it for the cash. Obviously, there's not a lot of money in natural bodybuilding compared to, say, the Olympia or any IFBB event.
Yep.
But if we can have an event where we have really high quality athletes, professionals competing for cash prizes, then some of the younger guys or some of the other guys who are contemplating what route to go, maybe that motivates them further to stay natural and compete in our event or compete in events in Europe or the Middle East.
Fantastic. Awesome.
Yeah, and then my probably way too far-fetched goal is I want to try and convince Bob to bring Worlds here and have it in a really sick venue. That's probably not going to happen, but I'll keep talking to Bob about it. And Bob Bell, he's the vice president of the WNBF, and we'll see. But that's that was my dream, is we can put it next to the Burj Khalifa, by the Dubai fountains. But let's see.
I love it. Dream big, boys. That's awesome.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's a hub for so many people from all over, good lighting, good venue.
Yeah, because as you guys see at Worlds, some of the biggest groups are Italy,
Oh, for sure.
Spain, England, especially in Europe, but then in the Middle East as it grows, because here in Dubai, I would say bodybuilding is the biggest sport.
Oh yeah.
I can't think of another sport here in Dubai that's bigger than, bodybuilding and fitness. So, I don't know. We haven't discussed this, Charles. That was new to me about bringing
dropping bombs.
I'm sure I said that before.
I'm sure you're going to need you're going to need a lot of convincing to get Bob to bring it here, but that would be an amazing long-term goal, I guess.
Hell yeah.
You'll just have to get Natty News out there to help promote.
For sure, guys, for sure.
You guys can be if you're not competing, you guys can be the presenters.
Let's go. Let's go. It's a hell of a lot warmer there than it is here right now. Bring me in for that spring. No, fall. We got to get in there for fall. Presented by Natty News. I like it. Put that on your calendar there, boys.
That'd be sick, actually.
I mean,
just throwing it out there.
You guys can come to one of our events.
No, yeah,
that'd be fun.
We've got big goals ourselves there, boys. So I like it. I like it. Quickly, man, plug social media, Instagram, if people want to get in touch with you guys personally, or the WNBF UAE itself. Where do they go?
So our handle is, I believe it's WNBF_UAE. Pretty simple. I think if you just type, even without the underscore, or type it in on Instagram, you can find us. We also run a podcast that we've just recently got back into, which is WNBF UAE. So there we talk a lot about we started talking about the event last year, but we also talk about, what we plan on doing with it moving forward. And we are going to be bringing in athletes from different, nationalities, Last week we had the champion of our bodybuilding division, who was, the very first Indian WNBF pro. So that was pretty cool. And we just plan on bringing in more athletes, coaches, anybody to do with natural bodybuilding. That's kind of why we reached out to you guys as well, because we think you guys have a very good platform for natural bodybuilding, and we like what you do to promote the sport. So anyways, yeah, our Instagram is WNBF UAE. Mine is Kyle Gallant. So if you just type that in. Charles, yours is?
Coach Charles Barclay, all one word. No relation to the basketball player, by the way.
Fair enough.
Where can you find your podcast?
Everywhere, Spotify, and then all the other places. Publish
Perfect.
it like any other podcast. So it should be on most platforms if they're big enough, I think.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it. Spreading the good word about natural bodybuilding is what we're trying to do here. So thank you guys for joining us in that mission. For you guys watching, if you like the episode, give it a like, subscribe to the channel for future ones. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Natty_News_Daily. And I can't say road to 10K anymore because we did that. So let's go road to 100K.
Road to 100K.
Yeah.
100K.
Yeah, we're adding a 0. Go big or go home. All right, guys. Thanks again. And we'll see you guys in the next one.